GUNPRIMER Razer Origin, GUNPRIMER Razer Plus, and GUNPRIMER Balancer. This is GUNPRIMER's premium gate removal set for Gunpla and other plastic model kits. Today we're going to be taking a look at how they work out on a few Gunpla pieces. But before that, let's take a look at some technical specs about them. First up, we have GUNPRIMER's Razer Origin, previously the Razer 1.5. This is a tempered glass nub removal tool made with super nano technology that boasts a 400 grit sanding surface with that super nano technology, which is essentially tiny holes on the sanding surface. Even though it is 400 grit, it is very, very fine, so it leaves a very smooth surface behind, so it doesn't leave very deep scratches like normal 400 grit sanding paper would. Next we have the Razer Plus. This one's GUNPRIMER's heavy duty gate remover. So this one's a bit larger physically than the Razer Origin. It's also the tempered glass design, so it's made to leave no scratches behind when removing nubs. They're also meant to be very highly durable, and it also boasts that super nano technology with a 220 grit sanding surface on this one, which is lower in comparison to the 400 grit on the Origin, though this does also leave a very smooth surface as opposed to other 200 grit sanding surface sanding paper or modeling sanding paper that'll leave a very coarse surface behind. Now back to trying out these on some Gunpla pieces. Here we have some leftover parts from Gunpla I've been working on for my personal collection, which is Char's Zaku to HG the Origin version. Here we have some extra chest pieces on either side of the chest, so we're going to go ahead and cut these out using our standard Bandai Spirits and entry nipper. We're not using God Hand or anything like that because we want to test the nub removal with our GUNPRIMER Razer products. Now first we're going to go ahead and remove these, leaving a small amount of the nub still on the piece. We don't want to cut directly against the piece because then that would leave stress marks and we won't be able to really see the true potential of the nub removal tools. So we're going to remove each here and set them aside, and then we're going to go ahead and remove their nubs with one of each of them, and then we're going to use the balancer afterwards to see how that polishes up each piece. We have each piece removed here. We'll get these sprues out of the way, and then we'll go ahead and test the Origin first and Plus second. Here's a quick still of the piece before I go ahead and remove the nubs so you can get an idea of what the nubs look like. So now we're going to go ahead and try the Razer Origin with this piece. So what I go ahead and do is I hold the glass file in my left hand securely, and then I go ahead and slowly scrape away excess plastic from the nub from the piece in my right hand. I've seen other videos where people do it slightly differently, but this is what's been most comfortable for me. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll try my best not to shake the camera as I do. I go ahead and use one of my wife's old makeup brushes with a little bit of an angled tip to go ahead and clean off the plastic residue that's inside the glass file and make sure to have it fall down onto my cutting mat so I can clean it off easier later. GUNPRIMER does sell a soft bristled brush for, I believe, $4.99 on their website. If you don't have access to these, go to your local convenience store. I'm sure you'll be able to find something very similar to this very cheaply. And as you can see, it cleans out that red plastic dust very nicely, and then I can go ahead and clean that off my mat later. And it doubles to be able to dust off the dust from your plastic piece. Let's go ahead and continue removing this nub. That looks good enough to me. And let's take a closer look. So compared to the large piece of gate that was previously right here, we can see that it's been removed. It's pretty smooth, but the surface isn't perfectly smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and take some stills of this so you can see this a little closely before we go and take a look at balancer, and then we'll move on to the next one. In this first photo, we see that the nub that was previously on this one piece that we just sanded off has been sanded off quite smoothly. Now moving on to the second photo, at a different angle, we can see that that surface isn't perfectly smooth and consistent with the rest of the part. Now we're going to go ahead and use the balancer to treat that piece so that we can go ahead and restore the gloss or semi-glossiness to a more consistency with the rest of the piece. So first we're going to treat it. I do apologize, my balancer looks a little beat up. This has seen quite a few kits. But on the bottom side, that's that light green side, we're going to go ahead and use this to treat the piece. And this is going to go ahead and bring it to a similar consistency with the rest of the part. Once we go over that a few passes, we'll see that it leaves a semi-matte finish on it. So once we've done that a few times, we'll go ahead and swap over to the white side of balancer, and we'll go ahead and essentially polish the piece. So just from a few passes on here, we'll see that it's gotten quite glossed up, and the sheen will be very similar to the rest of the part. Now, when using this, if you're just snap building a kit together, these results with the balancer will come out great. Now, if you're going to go ahead and recolor this, if you're going to go ahead and spray prime it and paint it a different color, I would suggest just using essentially this green part across the entirety of the kit to treat the plastic so that your primer does stick to it well. But here we can see that it leaves quite a nice finish on the plastic piece that when used very diligently, you can go ahead and bring back the sheen that you see on the regular plastic that hasn't been sanded or treated with balancer, so it looks very consistent. Now we're going to go ahead and see how the larger Razer Plus works. Now we're going to go ahead and use the Razer Plus to do the same thing with the other piece, the mirroring side, and see the results there. Again, I'm going to hold the glass file in my left hand. This one's a bit easier to use. It's a bit wider and bigger. So I prefer it, even though it has that lower 220 grit on the surface. We'll go ahead and take a look at those differences. So let's start sanding. We can see here, with that higher grit, we actually sand through those nubs much quicker. And we do get a pretty good surface afterwards, but you do need to be very careful not to over sand because you may misshape the piece afterwards. So let's go ahead and take some stills so we can get a closer look, and we'll see how this one came out. Taking a look at the first photo when using the Razer Plus, we can see that there can be some slight deformation in the piece if you're not careful. In the second photo, you can see it as well, where the flat plane or that curve has kind of been given a sharp angle. So that's one thing to be careful with when using the Razer Plus, even though it's faster to get through some of those gates. Now, my personal conclusion when it comes to the Razer Origin and the Razer Plus is that they're both actually really great products to be using. I actually enjoy both for different things. I use the Razer Origin for smaller nubs and things that might be more difficult to get to on a model kit, and I use the Razer Plus on those larger, thicker nubs. But I do find myself using the Razer Plus a lot of the times just because it's easier to hold. And then the balancer is good for certain kits that you're just snap building together. And you just want that regular plastic to shine through, and those colors on that plastic to look nice. Now, if you're going to be spraying over your kit, repainting it, airbrushing it, or anything like that, the balancer might not be as necessary at all. If you're just using a God hand and then snipping those nubs off with your God hand very closely, and then planning to spray over all that plastic later, you may not need any of these products. I do like to do that as well, but I also do like to use some kits with their standard plastic and then adding those color apps where needed and panel lining and adding that extra color myself. And then some kits will have the standard plastic out of the box visible, and then top coated so we can have that nice salmon color showing through like we see here. So in that situation, these are great products. Now, if you're solely going to be airbrushing your model kits and these nub marks and these stress marks made by nippers are going to be covered up in paint and disappear, then you might not need these, as these are a little pricey at about $25 for the Origin and I believe $28 for the Plus. For me personally, I do find these to be great tools. I use them on every kit now. That's why my balancer is a little beat up. I will be replacing this soon. And full disclaimer, these are Razer products, GUNPRIMER products that I've purchased myself. Razer didn't send these to me. I'm sorry, GUNPRIMER, again, I keep saying Razer. GUNPRIMER didn't send these to me. I bought these myself and wanted to make a review of them myself. But there you have it. These are great for entry, intermediate, and even expert level model kit builders. And depending on your situation, you may or may not need them, but I think it's a wise investment if you build lots of model kits. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.